So there is a fear to question our devotional experience. There is a genuine fear to question our devotional experience. But why? Why is there a sort of general fear for a real experience and what's really being lost? What are we actually losing when we think about the experience that we're to have afterwards or after fear has subsided? If losing our belief can actually add to a more genuine or to a more authentic devotional experience, or can add to our devotional journey, can add to our spiritual journey, however we want to phrase that, for where we are and for who we are. Why is there a fear to question what we believe? I thought about this leaving last week's Justification Live. I thought about this and it just hits a little bit different. Hits a little bit different because, as it says in the book of Ecclesiastes, who can tell a man what shall be after him? And that's a key note because when we're in our experience, when we are in our um, mind, when we are in our thoughts for what we should have for a specific religion or religious experience, as I've mentioned before, we don't really understand. We don't really perceive what should be afterwards. Should we let that go? And just building off of last week, skin in the game, we need something in order to lose something. And that's absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, there is a fear. There is a fear of losing the nothing that we have. There's a fear of losing the nothing that we have, but why? And when I thought about this, I was reminded of the Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon, chapter 3 and verse 1, where you have that individual looking for the one that their heart desires. You have the individual looking for the one that their heart is longing for, the one that that individual has the scent that they're looking for, has the frame, has the mind, has the embrace, but they can't find it. So what do? It says, I found him not. They're looking, they're searching throughout the city, they're asking the questions, they're doing everything that we would say or we would think is right. But for some reason, they can't find the one that they're looking for. And that's sort of an experience that we can probably relate to. Being confined to the denominational theory that we are confined to, being held to that. To think outside of that, I can imagine one is as if looking for the one that they are familiar to and with and not being able to find them. It is then in that way that a feeling of being lost. Because once you are separating from the denominational theory, you no longer have the denominational theory. As I said last week and then even weeks prior, the devotional experience or the religious experience is often deceived due to the human impulse that is attached to it. So while we're going through a what we would believe is a religious experience, it is guided by the human being. The physical stuff is what keeps and is what articulates to our devotional body authenticity of experience. Now, take the physical stuff away and take everything connected to the physical stuff away, and we are completely lost. We don't know where to turn to. We don't know who God is. We don't know what Savior is ours. We don't know what belief we have because we never had one to begin with. And that's part of the plan of having some skin in the game, or life allowing us to have some skin in the game being religious belief, that skin being our belief. Having life allow us to have or be led into a religious belief or a spiritual opinion, and then to have so much invested in that to where life allows that to fall away and crash, to where we no longer exist through it because it no longer exists to us for some reason. Well, that's heartbreaking. And in the ideal situation, the one truly engaged or truly wanting that experience will understand the illusion, will understand the deception that they were led into, and will go home. And in going home, I'm meaning will pick up the landscape of where their belief is thought to have originated and understand it, understand those words. But there's a fear because once the physical stuff is gone away, um, so do we, due to the impulse of our human being guiding the experience. So we become the individual in the Song of Solomon, chapter 3 and verse 1, looking but not able to find, asking but not able to find, searching but not able to find. And especially when we are repeatedly told in those books, seek and ye shall find, ask and you shall receive your answer. If it says that, right? And if the main character saying that is the one we rely on, if the one saying that is saying that, does that mean that they want us to rely on them for an experience? Or is it that we must actually step into something for an experience, an individual experience beside them? So often getting caught up in what is theoretical, the experience is built on a foundation of theory, and the experience is built off of the experience of another mind. This sort of degrades our experience and actually dehumanizes us. But we don't realize it because of fear. Whatever, I can't speak to all the fears of all, but an unwillingness to personally and practically experience words and to go through that experience with words alone, self with words only, experience with the intended words only, and with a belief in an overarching I guiding that. There is a fear. Now, the character in Song of Solomon 3, verse 1 searched and couldn't find. Jeremiah 29:13 gives us the answer for how to properly seek and find. And it says, you will find me once you seek with all of your heart. Finding and seeking isn't just going to mysteriously manifest what we're looking for. There has to be engagement, and the engagement of the heart, the engagement of the mind. All throughout the Bible, heart is connected to mind is connected to soul is connected to spirit is connected to mind, spirit is connected to heart. All of these things, all of these terms intermingle with one another and they mean the same thing. When seeking, when searching, and when finding with the heart, one is seeking, searching, and finding internally. That's privately. That's using the mental faculties not simply the emotional faculties, which is what, when our devotional conversation is conceived, it is given to rely on emotional faculties. Well, Bible's not about the emotional faculties. A proper use of the emotional faculties revolves around a proper use of the mental faculties. When the mental faculties can be exercised decently and appropriately, the correct emotion will follow. The correct emotion will follow. And that makes general sense. Because if we just simply had to, and even in a real sense, use our emotions without rationalizing them on a daily and a consistent basis, we would be a complete mess more than we already are. More than we already are. But to allow nothing to be taken personally, that means disciplining or rationalizing our emotions. We're then able to structure them and to categorize them, to understand how to appropriately approach situations, peoples, times, and seasons. Bible approaches it the same way. The core of the Bible's philosophy is the growth and the growth and the development of the devotional conversations conscience. Once that growth and development takes place, the human being then has a guide for its own self because it has been an assistant to and it has been a passenger to the devotional conversations experience with its growth and development. So it sees what has happened there. It is and will take note, taking and will take note. And this is, important because if our human being does not have that experience of observing the devotional conversations growth and development, it will continue to be hostile. It will continue to be aggravating. It will continue to be annoying to us, our human being. But the experience that the mind within the scriptures would offer and does offer to us is holding the devotional experience accountable for where it is and for who it is. The devotional experience held accountable for where it is and for who it is, well, that allows it to go on its own journey, even though we are a passenger. Learning how to temperately step aside for the body of our devotional conversations growth, and learning how to observe how that feels and what that looks like as the devotional conversation is growing, it becomes a lesson for our human being. It's a trickle down effect, but it begins with willingly and consenting to being lost in your devotional experience and embracing that feeling, losing belief to gain an authentic experience where now a belief that is sealed to our individual person arises. Now, this takes place or can take place by us questioning where we are. Not we personally, but we in the sense of our devotional conversation and who our devotional conversation is, the character. And we can allow ourselves to question because I believe that that's where so many individuals revolutionize their experience from the individuals that do reach out to me and that I do have conversations with about how to mesh the individual with the devotional experience when it appears that religion is not catering to it and when the religious experience is completely just ignorant to the fact that one, there's a human being, and two, there is a devotional being. One revolutionizes their experience when they begin to question what they're actually believing. When you can question what you're believing, you're exercising a level of humility within yourself that will guide what is within you to the answer. Remember, you will find me when you search and seek for me with all of your heart. Hold that principle to everything that is within the scriptures when it comes to understanding its language and its context, but also we can apply that to what is within. But when applying the language and context of what is within the scriptures. So the scriptures, the Bible is our guide. The Bible is the therapist that is not physical. The Bible is a therapist that we can actually we can read and study. That is our mental therapist. And once we leave that therapy session, well, now we have things to exercise. And the things that we have to exercise, we can place into our heart so that our heart and the mind within our heart can have material to scrutinize, to recycle, and to prune and to purge until the gem or till a gem for our individual human and devotional experience manifests. And once it does, we take what's manifested, bring it back to our therapist. Let our therapist give us more counsel. Once we learn the words from our therapist, we go right back out into the experience and continue the exercise. And it begins and should begin by questioning who our devotional character is and where our devotional character intends to go with its experience. There is a bit of a plateau when in the religious world and confined to it. And we will sense that plateau because we are human beings. As human beings, we're rationalizing consistently and we are feeling consistently. We're rationalizing and feeling. That's why we're jumping to church and church, pastor so and so, website to website, and all of this other within ourselves that is also doubtful. Because we know that there is more that we should be approaching, but we're not. It takes a little bit of courage on our part to do so. Because we have to have the courage, not even for our sake um, primarily, but for the sake of the building self within. We're going through a physical experience and we're thinking that everything is physical, even down to our religious theory and our approach to it, it's physical. Everything around us is sensation, feeling, and the release of oxytocin and serotonin and all of this from within our system and flowing down into our bodies. And we associate all of that with a living experience from the physical stuff. But in reality, that's not how things work. If we could just look at life the way life is, nothing is really actually that physical and that physical enough to make us addicted to it. Everything is psychological, including the physical things or the deeds and the acts that we do. Everything is psychological. Before they're committed, it's psychological. Before they're committed, sure, emotion may be that fuel, but there's psychology in there, and there's an attachment that's allowing that emotional fuel to move the experience into some sort of flesh based impulse. But again, the idea within the Bible's mind is an idea that would have us remove ourselves from such an experience because we're going to run out of fuel at some point. At some point, that experience is going to get tiring. And depending on who we are, it's going to happen quicker. And depending on who we are, it's going to take us years. The Bible would really, the logic within it, the logic within the Bible is for making sense of what our belief is and the vision that we have for our belief. And that involves questioning. That involves questioning because only by questioning is there help. And there's nothing wrong with questioning our general belief. There's heartbreak after because what we are questioning is something that we hold dear. But again, It's not that we hold it dear, it's human deception that we have deceived ourselves with the illusion of it being dear to us due to the feeling that it gives us. That really has it confined to our heart into the chambers of it. But in reality, we are losing nothing. We have never had a belief to begin with. We may have something that started as a belief, but soon enough that got swallowed up by some denominational theory. And then we just lost everything to the denominational theory, and then to the community, and then to the feeling. But there will come a point in time where our conversation will harass us to know more for its own sake. And that's when the questioning is needed. Questioning before the time, questioning after the time, everything happens in its season, and we really can't control that much. So where we are is where we are. Who our conversation is right now, the name that we have adopted, that's what it is. But every there's a season to everything. There's a season to our experiences, and especially when it comes to our devotional or spiritual journey, there's a season to it. And there will come a season, again, to some, it will come instantly. To others, it will take many more years, but there will come a point in time where our conversation is going to ask us to question it. Our conversation is going to ask us to question it. When our conversation asks us to question it, we need to let our conversation go through that. We are not our conversation. And when our conversation begins to question its belief, that's when we begin to realize that we don't know it when it's taking place. We don't understand what's happening. But what's happening is that the self within, the intelligence within, the essence within our human being is rising up and wanting a level of consciousness that our human being, through its religious experience or through its spiritual journey, has been removing it from. So we have to be able to give what is within us the chance to be what it is supposed to be. Easier said than done when going through it, especially if attached to whatever we are attached to emotionally and theoretically, but it's necessary because again, we are human beings. When our when that season comes to when our devotional conversation wants to question itself, we will realize that the experience has been human. That's when disappointment comes in. That's when our skin in the game, that's when our investment gets taken away. And that's good. Doesn't feel good. It may not appear to be good, but that's good because that's Bible justification. Bible justification. Justification is sanctifying. Justification is consecrating. Justification is separating. When justified, cleansing takes place. And the way that the Bible operates in its matter of justification is that it needs to justify. The mind within the Bible wants to justify the mind closely connected to it. Now the Bible is a book, words are words. There's no body to words, there's no body to the Bible. Sit the Bible there, it will not move. Open the Bible up, it will not close itself of its own self. The Bible is not a physical entity. No book is a physical entity. The experience, when guided by the words that are within this book, is an experience that is not physical, is an experience that is mental. So, what is mental needs to be with what is mental. And while written in a way that is flesh based and that it is appearing natural or physical, the authors that wrote this work, they're not writing from a physical standpoint, and nothing that they're saying is for the physical human being. Primarily, secondarily, yes. Everything that is within this book, it is for our mind, and specifically for the mind of our devotional conversation. The mind of the Bible, the logic within it, is written to mesh with the mind or the logic within the devotional conversation. It is our devotional conversation that is to go through a process of justification, primarily and firstly. So, as our conversation is going through its manner of justification and as it is being cleansed, well, this we can know is the correct process because this is what only words can do. This is what words can do. This is what an inanimate object containing words can do. It only becomes animate by the words. And those words meshing with our mental, meshing with our inward, become living as they are continually exercised. And sounds weird to say if not really engaging self in that manner, but these words are living words. And I've grown fond of them because I've come across no other text or no other work to be of this nature. Profound, the philosophy that is within the Bible. It's living and for the living individual. So the mind of the Bible has to mesh with the mind of the devotional conversation because that's what justification is. Justification is the cleansing of the conversation. Our conversation is not healthy. Our conversation, when conceived within the religious world, because the religious world is born and remains engaged with philosophical and theoretical and theological deception, our conversation born to that is also born in religious error. Every scope of the Bible's philosophy is redeeming, regenerating, resurrecting, refreshing the conversation's thoughts and feelings. So when we find our conversation questioning its belief, we ought not go to the human impulse of that result or of that occurrence, which would be to, I can't believe in this anymore because it's false. Well, our experience has been human, our religious experience has been human, so it's no surprise that the reaction to our self questioning our belief is also human. Okay, so that's not what really should take place because we are not questioning what we are coming across within the scriptures to be valid or invalid. That's not us. What is within us is questioning. And that's why I made it a point weeks ago to talk about how it's necessary and crucial for us in our devotional experience to separate our human from our devotional conscience. Because what is within us has to question. When what is within us is questioning, that's not us. Our conversation has thoughts and feelings of its own. And when it is beginning to question, that's when our human being should go, wait a minute, something doesn't feel right. Why doesn't it feel right? And it's that why doesn't it feel right that should lead us to a journey, to an expedition of understanding. And primarily, if we're questioning the Bible, well, let's just jump back. Let's just jump into that to understand why my mind is questioning this. Not going outside to other sources to get the answer, because all of the other sources are pointing to the Bible for being its logic. So if all of the other sources that we are hearing is not making sense anymore and it's causing us to question our belief, well, our human impulse is going to tell us to stay away from this book and this experience and to then maybe even hate it. But again, this is not for our human being. The questioning is not coming from us personally. Do not take that personal. That's not us questioning. That is our mind of the devotional conversation, or that is the mind within the body of our belief questioning. Let that handle what it needs to handle. Let that. And once we do, we will actually arrive at a healthy devotional experience, at a healthy philosophical standpoint, because that's what is within us. That's what is looked for from within us. our devotional conversation is looking forward to within its own self, is what I mean. That's what it's looking for. If we could just feed that and just give it its space to do what it needs to do and just step outside, leave it alone, let it do what it needs to do, our devotional conversation can develop a culture that is fitting for it. It is this developing culture that makes our devotional experience healthy because now we have a culture fitting our individual person and with the inquiry, filled with the inquiry, and an experience with those words, suiting that inquiry for a healthy experience that we can carry out consistently. And that's really all it's about. It's not about returning to a book. It's not about a thou shalt not or a thou shalt. It's not about a routine. It's not about a habit. It's not about a ceremony. It's about how, as a human being, we can relate not just to ourselves as a human being, but to the devotional character that is within. Now, the Bible is a book guiding that experience. And if we can take the courage to question, if we can allow our conversation to take the courage and to take the courage to experiment and experience and examine what it is questioning, well, then we will then experience the Bible definition of justification. So I will end there with this thought of just the Bible definition of justification. Experience it. Experience it. There is fraudulence, and we know that there is fraudulence. So let's not continue to pretend to be in a place where there is no fraudulence. Embrace the wrong. Embrace that feeling. Embrace that wrong feeling to uncover right feeling. And so question. Allow the conversation to question what is wrong so that the conversation can uncover what is decent and what is fair and according to the scope of the philosophy that is within the Bible. Take care for now.